Welcome to this video on LangGraph. This is a beginner guide and this is going to be the first in the series. So first we will look at what is LangGraph, and then we will look at what are the components. We will look at the key components that are there that make up a LangGraph. Once we see that, we will do a simple example where we will create a QA bot. Then we will create a conversational bot by adding some more features. That said, let's see what is a LangGraph. A LangGraph is a graph-based framework. So in this graph-based framework, the main idea is there are a lot of components that have to communicate with one another to create an entire AI workflow. To orchestrate the entire workflow, we make use of this LangGraph. And initially, we pip install LangGraph. Once we have pip install LangGraphs, we can start creating the graph. The first step is we have to define the state. So this is the first component that we're looking at. The second component is a node, and we have to add a node to the graph. Then we will add edges to the graph, and finally we will compile the graph. This is the overall structure, and that these are the only 4 things that need to be done for any LangGraph. The whole idea is we take a node, you pass the state of the graph. The state of the graph means you have some information already stored in the graph. So that you take it as a state and pass it to the graph, and from the node in the graph. So basically this node is going to be analogous to our LLM. This is going to be our LLM in which we are going to do all the processing. So it makes use of the state, it makes use of the prompt, takes its decision, and then finally gives a response in the way of a message. So now that we know how to create a simple graph and we have seen the key components, let's see it with the help of an example. This particular code is all we need to create a graph in LangGraph. So first we have to define the schema. In the schema, we have to say what all we want to store in the state of the graph. Now that we have said it, I will now create my agent. To create this node, I will pass the state as an argument, and I will also have to return state. And then I write whatever logic I want in that. In this case, I have written that I want to increase the state by 1. We will also see other examples where we will use the messages that we pass in between the AI and the human. The first step is we have to create a state graph. This state graph has to take the state as an argument, and we get the object of state graph. With the object of state graph, we have to add a node, and for that we have to give the node a name. We have called the node as counter, and this internally calls the function increment count. We use 2 special nodes called a start and end to say where we want to start the processing of the AI workflow and where we want to stop the AI workflow. To start, we say that we have an edge between start and counter, and we also had another edge between counter and end. And finally, we compile the graph. Now we have graph base. This object implements the runnable interface, which means we know that we can now use it to call the invoke message. And we give the initial value of the state, which is 0. To summarize, we have state, nodes, and edges. State is a data structure which we use to say what should be the schema of the data stored in the graph, which is going to be used by all the nodes and all the edges, because that's going to be the state of the graph. And that can either be a type tick or it can be a base model. And we have already seen an example where we used a type tick. Nodes are just functions in which we write the logic for the agent. And edges are functions which will determine what is the next action to be taken. To display our graph, we make use of ipython.display import image because I'm using a Jupyter notebook. and then I have to convert it into a mermaid syntax and finally render it as a PNG. This is the code. So first we pip install LangGraph. Once it is installed, we now run the code. Finally, let us try to display the graph. We have created a graph with a single node called counter and two predefined nodes start and end, and we have also created the edges. We have seen LangGraph and the key components. Coming up next, we will see how to create a QA bot, and then subsequently in the next video we will see how to create a conversational chatbot using memory, and then we'll move on to tools.